My name's Lucy. That's with an I, not with a Y. I live in Selly Oak, Birmingham. I was born in Barbados. I was born at the Bayview Hospital in Barbados. Bayview Hospital, which has since closed down. I moved over here when I was 18. I kind of had aspirations and the hopeful dream of becoming an actress of some kind, or being involved in the theatre, because I really enjoyed the theatre. Like, I never really had that much of a place in education until I got onto a theatre program, and then I was like, ooh, this is really my calling. So then I thought England would be a good choice, because, you know, theatre reputation here is pretty high. I remember knowing I wanted to come to the UK, because we would travel, because my father was born here. My mother was also born here, but she identifies with being Bajan. So we would come back and forth, because like some family still lives here. So I remember coming one time and getting off the plane, and we were in what's that big airport? Is it Gatwick Airport? Yeah, the massive one. Yeah, we were in there, and some guy walked by in like a pink leotard and a tutu, and this other guy was wearing a Tin Man suit, and the other guy was holding a balloon, and they just kind of barged past like there was no problem. And I was like, I like this place. I want to stay here. Can I stay here? Yeah, considering that at home everything was very conservative and everything is very like own way, and I've always been kind of alternative. To see that and to see people being so proud about who or what they are, it was just like, wow, that's amazing. Alternative sexualities and gender identifications aren't really acknowledged, I suppose you could say. So then when I came to, I was actually going to catch, I was going to catch the number 1, and I got off at the 45 at the bus stop just near here at the Mac, and I was walking that way towards Edgbaston, and I saw one going up, and it read, some guys marry guys, get over it. Some guys kiss guys, get over it. That's it. And I remember just being like, what? You mean they can say that in public and nobody bats an eye? You mean that government has actually funded this? You mean that it's allowed? Like, there's acceptance is allowed? Like, wow. I remember that being one of the most heart melting moments for me, especially in my identity, in my sexuality, just understanding that there was a place, which is very, very nice. It's always difficult. I remember coming out to my parents, and with them, it wasn't even about who I was loving. That wasn't the problem. For them, the problem was how society would treat me, and how now I had to work extra hard for my rights. And I mean, they know me. They know I'm the sort of person to work hard for whatever I believe in, but it was that pain that my mother and my father had to deal with the idea that now their little girl has to work hard to love someone. And you see that a lot in Barbados. You see a lot of people working hard to love, working hard to be accepted or to be who they are, and so much so that they either allow themselves to completely cover it up altogether, or they allow themselves to be influenced by stereotypes, because the funny homosexual is a stereotype we're all comfortable with. So it's that level of seeing people hiding behind different masks, and it was, for me, I think one of the hardest moments whenever I go back home is seeing how far behind we are in the times. Like, we had this one story a few years ago. I say a few years ago, I think it was a summer ago. Yeah, it was last summer when I went home. And I think I'm so strong, and I think I'm so like firm, but it shook me to my core, because it's this highly held in great esteem radio personality and theater personality wrote to the paper saying how homosexuals were the cause of HIV, and that it's just a lot of misnomers, and what we know is, you know, unscientific, like, and a lot of myths, and was like regurgitating these untruths, and like the public was eating it up. And I felt so condemned because the public was eating this up. The public was praising this guy for acknowledging these truths. And I was like, I remember like, it was like someone had pulled apart my bones, and I just crumbled into basically dust. And my mother holding me, and I was just like, it's horrible because I forget that happens. Being here, I guess, in a way is like a bubble because no one cares. No one actually cares, which is wonderful. Well, those that do care aren't allowed to say they care because of the protection of the law. My dad lived in Middlesex, and my mom moved back to Barbados like when she was a teenager, and she was born here. She was born in Leicester, but my granddad is Bajan, but she always knew she was a Bajan woman. Like my mother used to be. My whole family would tell me how miserable my mother was as a little girl. And you can see, like, in some of the pictures, she's just miserable. And you're like, please, like, try and smile. And then when she gets to Barbados, like, they tell the story, well, my mom tells the story of getting off the plane and smelling the salt air, and it was like every packed. And she kind of just, she knew she belonged, and her roots, like, took place, and she was like, I'm not leaving. This is Granddad Mervyn and my grandmother Josie. Yeah, this is his war picture. And Grandma Josie died before I was born. And she loved Peggy Lee. And she also has incredibly straight hair. And I'm the only person in my family who has straight hair. And I got it from her. And my grandfather, he was a very big, a very influential man in Birmingham. Well, in his time, because he started the black business of Birmingham. Yeah, Black Business in Birmingham enterprise. And he started that, and it still goes today. Like I still see people come into my workplace. So he was very influential. He won like some medals from the Queen because, you know, that's what you do. In Middlesex is this family of two, a mom and a dad, Roy and Joy, who are my grandparents. I know, Roy, Joy and the boys. How adorable is that? And their three sons, Lawrence, Clive, and Neil. And my dad was the middle child. And my dad, like, he was studying horticulture, tropical horticulture, and he wanted to experience the world some more, and he applied for a job. He had a girlfriend in Grenada, and my dad was like, no, he had a girlfriend he met at college that was from Grenada, so he wanted to go to the Caribbean. So then he called the school and was like, I'm looking for a job. And the first person he talked to was my mother. The very first person in Barbados he ever contacted was my mom. And she was like, hey, we can use somebody. They were good friends for a while. They both continued like their lives separately. They became best friends, and they had marriages and divorces and all the fun stuff in between. But then at one point, my brother was like, Mom, why you don't date Clive? And my mom was like, no, but maybe I'll try. Why not? In the existential motion of things, why not? So she said, all right, Clive, let's go out. And then that was 27 years ago now, I think. It's interesting because I don't even think my story is that big of a migratory story. And I know that sounds really weird. Like, I've not come from anywhere incredibly far because Barbados was a post-colonial country. Like, it only feels natural that at some point, it's really weird because my mom and I did the reverse journey. So I was born in Barbados and she was born in Leicester. And when she went to Barbados, around the time she went to Barbados, I went to England, and it's very strange that that's the way that it has worked out as the two of us. There's a level of ignorance that everyone has, really, but I think it's not discriminatory and it's not negative in that way. It's more stereotypes. So I'm from Barbados, I work at a Caribbean restaurant, so a lot of people just, like, they assume certain things, like we don't have roads. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like, we only got dirt roads, and I'm like, we have highways. Granted, it only takes half an hour to get from from the top of point A to the bottom of point B. I mean, ever so often you hear things like, Barbados, where's that at, Jamaica? And I'm like, no, that's the other side of it. Okay, never mind. If you're a type of person from a specific race or a specific class or whatever, and you migrate to one country, it can be seen as a positive thing. But then if you're from another, then again, it's polar opposite, seen as a negative thing. And that's a I guess that's a system that I don't really approve of. I get really annoyed about. because migration is a beautiful thing. It's like free movement. Like we're entitled to it, because again, if I wasn't allowed to migrate, well, would I have found my own sense of self-identity? Would I have been able to feel comfortable as a queer woman? Like, you know, it's those levels of questions that can't be answered if you begin to close doors or tighten up borders. I think we dehumanize so quickly, so very quickly. The term migration, you forget that there is the emotional aspect that people have lived their lives in many different countries. I encourage people to take the opportunity to travel, because you begin to, it matures you. Loving two places and loving two groups, or loving not even just two, but loving multiple areas, multiple people, being able to stretch yourself across a border matures you as a person, and it encourages you to understand cultures that you may not necessarily have to understand, or been in a place to understand before. So yeah, those are my roots.